A classic example of the mediator design pattern is a chat room. So why not build one? Let's actually build a very simple chat room. So a chat room is composed of several people all interacting. So we're going to begin by making a class called person. Now I'll have that person have a name, but in addition, the person is also going to have a reference to the room that they're currently in. So we're going to have public chat room like so, and of course we have to create the chat room class, so let's create that. Now in addition, the person is going to have a chat log. So a chat log is basically going to be just a list of strings representing all the messages that this particular person has received. So we can have a private list of string called chat log, and that's going to be initialized like so. Let's go again, and there we go. Okay, so now that we have this, let's make a constructor, maybe a constructor which just initializes the name. So generate code, constructor, initialize the name, there we go. Don't care about the no checking part. And then we have a bunch of APIs for what the person can do. So for example, they can say something, and that means they're broadcasting their message to the room. So that's going to be a message. In addition, what they can do is they can send a private message, and in this case we have to specify who the private message is to and what the message is. So finally they can receive a message, and in this case we might want to have some diagnostic output. So whenever a person receives a message, we're going to write it to the console. So we'll have string sender and string message. And here we're going to, we're going to do a couple of things. First of all, we'll make the actual message so that we can add it to the chat log. So I'm going to say string s equals, and then we'll get the sender colon, and then the message in single quotes like so. I will add this message to the chat log, chat-log.add s, but in addition we'll write line what it actually is, and we're going to write line this including the information about whose chat session it actually is. So we're going to say this is name's chat session, and then we'll put the message in here. So that's our diagnostic information. Now in order to say something or to send a private message, we need a reference to the chat room, and we haven't built the chat room yet. So let's actually do that now. So the chat room is just going to be a list of people. So private list of person people equals new. There we go. So this is the set of people talking in the chat room, and then we'll have a bunch of methods for, first of all, joining. So a person can join the room. So public void join person p, and here we're going to have the join message, string join message equals, and then we're going to have p.name. p.name joins the chat. We're going to broadcast this message to the entire room, because as soon as somebody joins, everybody needs to be notified. So the target is going to be room, and we're going to send join message. And by the way, we don't have the broadcast method yet, so let's make that as well. So here we'll have a string representing the source. And actually no, that's not right. The string represents it's going to be the source, because it's the room telling everybody that somebody has joined. Source, and then the string is going to be message like so. So the idea of broadcast is you go through every single person and you actually tell them that this message has come in. So this is where the chat room is mediating the messages. So it's kind of like the central message hub. Somebody broadcasts a message, even if it's the room itself, and you have to send it to everyone in the room. So for this we do for each var p in people, we check that the name of the person is not the same as the source, because if you broadcast, you don't want it to be replayed to yourself. So if p.name is not equal to source, then we say p.receive is receive public. Let's take a look. If we go up into person for a moment, it's a public thing, so p.receive, and here we have the source as well as the message. There we go. So this is how a room can actually be used to broadcast a message to every single participant in chat. And finally, we're going to have a private message. So we're going to have a method called message, where you specify the source, who's sending the message, you specify the destination, and you specify the message, obviously. So in this case, what we do is we say, we find the person for whom this message is addressed, because that's the destination string, and we're keeping people as a list of persons, so we have to do a search. We do people.first or default, where p.name is equal to the destination. And then what we do is we do a safe call, because remember, I'm calling first or default, so that can return null if we don't find the person. So I'm doing a safe call to receive with source and message. There we go. So in our scenario, the chat room is a central component which acts as a mediator and which allows people to communicate with one another without really knowing that they're present. So for example, when you say something, you're telling it to the whole room. So we can now finish off the implementation of say and private message. So in the case of say, we say room.broadcast, and we specify our own name as the source and the message. So that's easy. And by the way, that probably has to be made public if it hasn't been made public already. And for the private message, we have to, well, it's also easy. So we say room.message, and we say the source is us, so our name. We message who, and here is the message itself. Okay, so having built this mediator, what we can now do is we can try it out and see what the room messages are. So we're going to make the room itself, new chat room. In addition, we're going to make the room participants like John, which is going to be a new person called John, like so. And I'll replicate this, and I'll have Jane as well. Jane, like so. And then we're going to have both of them join the room. So John.join, actually it's room.join John, and the same goes for Jane. So both of them join the room, and then they can start talking to one another. So for example, John can say hi, for example, or Jane can say, oh, hey, John. There we go. And then we can have someone else join in, like var Simon equals new person Simon. Simon's going to join the room, so room.join Simon. And then, well, let's say Simon says, hi, everyone. And then Jane sends him a private message. So Jane can send a private message to Simon. And the private message says, glad you could join us. Exclamation mark. There we go. Okay, so now that we've built the scenario for our mediator, let's actually execute this and see what happens. And we're getting an exception to begin with. So let's figure that out first of all, because that is slightly unpleasant, shall we say. So I'm going to close this, and we're going to just F5 it and see where this thing crashes, because, well, it has to crash somewhere. All right, so we probably forgot to initialize the room. Yeah, so we forgot to initialize the room, and this is something that you can do in the join. So if we go to the join method, we can add a few more functionality, because we forgot to actually add the person. So the person's room is set to this, and then we add it to the set of people. So we say people.add p. There we go. So second time lucky, hopefully, and we get our chat log. And as you can see here, what's happening is, remember, we have John joining, but when John joins, there is no message being sent to anyone, because he's the only person in the room. There's nobody else in the room, so no messages are sent. But when Jane joins the chat, then John receives that chat message, because he's already in the room. And then John says hi, so Jane gets that. John obviously doesn't, because he's the one who said it, effectively. And then John's chat session gets Jane's message, oh, hey, John. Now, Simon joins the chat, and both John and Jane's chat sessions get the notification that Simon joins the chat. And Simon says, hi, everyone, and both John and Jane get the message. And then here is the private message from Jane to Simon. So it's in the Simon in Simon's chat session, Jane says, glad you could join us. So as you can see, we've built a chat room which acts as a mediator between different people, and the people don't have to be aware of one another beforehand, meaning they don't have to have references to one another. They can refer to each other by name if they want to. They can get a list of all the participants in the room. They can send messages, and if somebody tries to send a message to somebody that doesn't exist, like if we make a mistake here, nothing bad is going to happen because we essentially have this safe access here. So if you don't find the person to send a message to, you simply don't send the message. It's as simple as that. And this is what makes the mediator so great. It's the fact that you don't have to be aware of the other participants, and if some of the participants drop out, your messages are still valid. They just don't go anywhere.